So I was on an airplane with my son and my daughter and my husband at the time, and I was so stressed because he was young, he was like 10 months old, and I was nursing, and it was our first flying experience as a family with 2 children under the age of 2. And I remember getting on that plane and just praying, because I hate flying, which is crazy because I was in the Air Force, but that's another story. And I was praying, God, please, please be with me on this flight. Please don't let the kids scream and bother everybody around us, because I'm so stressed out right now. And sure enough, as soon as we began to fly, my son was just not having it. He was crying. There was nothing I could do to comfort him. I was clearly stressed out. And the woman in front of me, I felt so bad for, because like he was right in her ear, and I thought, if she turns around, she's probably going to cuss me out. But that's not what happened. She turned around, she looked at me, she goes, "Can I try?" And I thought, well, if she's crazy, she can't get off the plane with my son. And I looked at her and I said, "Sure, you go ahead and try." She goes, "Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to hold him and just walk around the aisle with him." And I was so desperate. I was like, "Do whatever you have to do." She could tell I was struggling, and I was so disappointed with God, because I was like, look, I prayed for this. I prayed for you to take care of this on this airplane, and this is crazy. And so she stood up. I put my son in her arms, and he's crying, and he didn't want her at all. And she began to walk down the aisle. Everybody's staring at us, because, I mean, what else do you do on an airplane when you're the loudest family on there? And as she began to walk, I just kind of leaned over and watched her in the hallway with my son. And sure enough, he stops crying. And sure enough, before I knew it, this woman sitting where the flight attendant would sit, and he was just passed out. She held him for the entire flight. In fact, he had a sweat mark on her arm. His hair was drenched with sweat, and she didn't give him back, which was awesome, because I needed a break for all you moms out there who have flown with children that just cried the entire flight. I hear you. And so we land, and I couldn't thank her enough, and I was like, "Thank you, God, for answering my prayers. I don't know who you sent, but this woman clearly was sent by you." And she handed me back my boy, and she leaned over and she said, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Thank you so much for letting me hold your son." She said, "I lost my son just a few months ago." And she said, "You were an answer to my prayers." I looked at her, and tears came back into my eyes, and I said, "You were an answer to mine." You know, you never know who's around you, who God sends, what the assignment is. But I can tell you this, God answered prayers. He didn't just answer mine, but he answered hers too. So I was